A hillside pavilion will be situated on the highest point in the garden, a stargazing pavilion, appropriately with a view of the Mount Wilson Observatory in the distance. This exceptionally beautiful space is made possible by our very own June and Simon Lee. June, the founding curator of the garden, of course, and Simon, one of our overseers. We are enormously grateful to you both. To the west will be an event space for large gatherings that significantly expands our programmatic capabilities in and around the garden. If you've celebrated Chinese New Year here, you will know firsthand that once the celebration court, as it will be called, opens, it will be full of people of all ages watching the lion dance. Thank you to Mei Li Nei for making the celebration court possible. It is such an important element, not least because it has the potential to generate significant revenue for the Huntington. Thank you, Mei Li. Pending additional fundraising, we will build a courtyard for the display of Penjing, landscapes in miniature, and link it to our existing garden by a flower-covered winding pathway. KY and Alison Cheng have named the corridor in the Penjing Court, and Helen and Joseph Koo the beautiful pathways which will lead visitors there. We thank each of you for your support of the Huntington and of the Garden of Flowing Fragrance. And right here, where we were all standing in the court, or sitting, in the court of assembled worthies, this courtyard will receive its final decorative pebble mosaic, which will echo those elsewhere in the garden. Thank you, Joel Axelrod, for gifting this courtyard to us. As you can see, it works perfectly for functions and gatherings of this kind. Now it is my great honour and privilege to introduce someone very special who's going to lead this wonderful institution into its next century. Karen Lawrence has not yet formally begun her tenure as our new president here at the Huntington, but if you've read her message in our most recent calendar, you will not be surprised to see her here today. Karen, we're so happy to have you here and to have you join us, not least because it's already so clear that you believe so deeply in this garden and in our mission. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me give the warmest of Huntington welcomes to Dr. Karen Lawrence.
I'm used to having a microphone lowered when I come to the stage. Thank you, Steve, and thank you for everything that you've done for the Huntington. Could we have a round of applause for this incredible? So it's a real pleasure to add my welcome to you all on this joyful occasion. I may be new here, but I'm keenly aware of the history of this project. The many years of planning, as well as the participation of so many individuals in the audience. In fact, it is the community aspect of the garden that most strikes me. Your tremendous support for this project. Creating a 12-acre Chinese garden in the midst of San Marino did not happen overnight. Thanks to your generous contributions of time, passion, and financial support, we are serving a crucial purpose in Southern California, and specifically the San Gabriel Valley, that is home to over 300,000 people of Chinese heritage. This is truly your garden. Also through the Chinese garden, we've created an unparalleled public platform for cultural exploration and understanding. A place where grandparents can show their grandchildren something about their heritage and traditions. A place where friends can gather daily to walk the gardens and exercise and relax. a place where someone who's never had the privilege to travel to China can enjoy Chinese music and dumplings, not to be secondhand, in the tea house restaurant. And it provides an opportunity, an important opportunity, for people from many different cultural backgrounds to experience genuine Chinese culture. Today, we formally kick off construction that will expand the physical space of the garden, but that's only part of the story. We're expanding the programmatic and educational offerings in and around the garden too. Through our Center for East Asian Studies, the only one of its kind in the United States, we offer lectures, musical performances, artistic activities, and classes. We promote dialogue about literature, architecture, music, and botany, and we impart an understanding that goes well beyond our garden's white exterior walls. The next 18 months will bring many exciting moments. We'll welcome artisans from Suzhou to do the creative work of building the garden. They'll work closely with Snyder Langston, the construction partner on this project. We'll watch as steel frames go up, as pebble mosaics are intricately placed, and walls and curved roof lines change the landscape around us. So thank you for being part of this project. I'm eager to join you in helping to implement this full vision. Thanks.
I can stoop. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Karen. On behalf of all of us, we're so glad to have you join us at this exciting time in the moment of the Huntington and of the Garden of Flowing Fragrance. I'm equally privileged to have the opportunity to introduce another remarkable leader, Congresswoman Judy Chu. Judy Chu is the first Chinese-American woman elected to Congress in the history of this country. Since her election in 2009, she has represented the 27th Congressional District, which includes Pasadena and the West San Gabriel Valley, encompassing San Marino. She has tirelessly advocated for her diverse constituents, especially in serving on the House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over legislation pertaining to taxes, revenues, Social Security, and Medicare. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Judy Chu.
Well, how wonderful it is to be here on this auspicious occasion, the groundbreaking for Phase 2 of the Huntington Chinese Gardens. This is truly a special moment, and this is truly a special place. In fact, I want to tell you that just this month, I was arranging a trip for Washington, D.C. leaders to come to Los Angeles. And I had my choices of any of the sites in Los Angeles County to bring them to. But I decided that I wanted to bring them to my congressional district, to these Huntington Gardens, and to the Chinese Gardens. And yes, absolutely. And as we walked through the Huntington Gardens, I told them how the Suzhou Gardens in China is considered the most beautiful in China, and it's even on the UNESCO World Heritage Site. I told them how the Huntington Gardens decided to simulate and duplicate this in Phase 1 of this construction, how they painstakingly brought stones and pavilions, plants and bridges to this area, how they had to break them up and reassemble them here, and that in every phase of this process they had people from Suzhou, architects from Suzhou, painstakingly overseeing the whole process to make sure that it was truly authentic, and how they worked with local construction people to make sure that this was earthquake safe. How the community rose up and gave generous donations of over $18 million to make this come to fruition. And how after 4 years of construction, this garden became one of the largest and most authentic classic style gardens outside of China. It is now the pride of the San Gabriel Valley, if not all of Southern California. For us in the San Gabriel Valley, with our huge Asian American population, this is a way of showing the beauty of our culture and of creating even greater community relations as people can experience what the Chinese culture is all about. Well, my guests from Washington, D.C. are world travelers, but they have never seen anything like this. Yes, they were incredibly impressed. They could not believe that you would have this Chinese garden along these other gardens that were also authentic, along with all these historical collections that have been gathered over 100 years. And they vowed that they would come back and bring their families to experience this. And to think, now this garden will be tripling in size from 4 acres to 12 acres. And that in phase 2, you will see even more magnificent kinds of sites. Once it's finished, you will be able to see from the stargazing tower these stunning views of the water, the treetops, and the mountains. And you will be able to go into a flower brush library where you will get to feel what it would be like for a scholar to do painting and calligraphy. And you will be able to reflect in the streams of the Orchid Pavilion and to experience the medicines of ancient China, as well as eat at a wonderful new 2-story restaurant. Now, I understand that the fundraising for this has already been incredible. Already $23 million that have been raised from the community to make this come to pass. And I just think it shows the great enthusiasm by the community to make this happen. So I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you, the Huntington Library leaders, the Chinese American community who come forth to make sure that we have this magnificent showcase, which will continue to be a source of tremendous education to the community, to the wonderful aspects of Chinese culture. So thank you all for making this happen. I cannot wait till we have the grand opening of phase 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Well, we are equally honored to have with us today Consul General Zhang Ping, representing the Consulate General of the People's Republic of China in Los Angeles. Our garden is truly an international partnership, and it would not have been possible without the support of our friends at the Consulate. For that, we are extremely grateful. By bringing world-class performers to our stage for the Chinese New Year and the Harvest Moon Festival, by promoting our lectures and programs, and by encouraging others to support the garden, the Consulate Office has been hugely instrumental and helpful to the success of this effort. Please join me in welcoming Consul General Zhang Ping.
Honorable Congresswoman Judy Chu, respected Madam President Karen Lawrence, congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen and friends of Huntington Library, good morning. It gives of the second phase construction of the Huntington Chinese Garden, the Garden of Flowering Fragrance, to celebrate with the friends of the Huntington Library this auspicious moment, which marks another important milestone in the course of Huntington Library's development, as well as its cultural engagement and collaboration with China. 5 months ago, my wife and I first visited Huntington Chinese Garden. We were quite amazed by the fact in Southern California, which is tens of thousand miles away from China, there's such a wonderful Chinese garden with its exquisite architectural styles and beautiful landscape, bearing the vivid resemblance of the humble administrator's garden in Suzhou, the place that my family originated from, and the place I take great pride of its rich cultural heritage. Wandering in this garden and seeing those familiar scenes, the houses, pavilions, corridors, stone bridges, winding footpaths, lakeside rocks, rippling ponds, and the changing views from window to window, aroused my nostalgic sentiment and also those childhood memories of my numerous visits to the various gardens in Suzhou. Suzhou garden art presents the traditional aesthetics in architecture. It reflects the understanding of our ancestors on the relationship between the man and the nature, which emphasizes on harmony, peace, and tranquility. It also embodies the aspiration of the Chinese people towards the outside world. The philosophy and ideas behind the Chinese garden art still remain relevant to the current international circumstances. While we strive for harmony between the man and nature, we should not forget that harmony between different countries and different cultures is of our vital importance to the peace and stability of the world. To achieve this, to learn and appreciate the values and ideas of different cultures is the right way to start with. The Huntington Chinese Garden is not merely an attractive duplicate of a classic Suzhou garden. It is also a good example of mutual learning and mutual respect between different cultures. The Huntington Chinese Garden not only provides a tourist spot for people to enjoy the beauty of a foreign garden, but also an experience to appreciate the beauty of cultural inclusiveness and diversity. China and the United States are two great nations. We have much to learn from each other and share with each other. The Huntington Chinese Garden is a masterpiece of China-US collaboration based on spirit of mutual learning and sharing. The success of the first phase construction has already made the garden an icon of China-US cultural exchange and played a significant role in promoting friendship and understanding between our two peoples. I believe with the completion of the second phase construction, the garden will present the Chinese garden art and culture more in its entirety to the American people, providing a bigger platform for the people-to-people exchange between China and the United States. I appreciate the long-term commitment and efforts by Huntington Library in promoting cultural exchange and mutual understanding between China and the Chinese and American people. It is my sincere hope that with the concerted efforts, the second phase construction will proceed smoothly and the new garden will open to the public at an early date. I wish you all the success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those wonderful remarks. One of the many aspects that makes our garden so relevant in this particular space is the community that surrounds us. We are fortunate to be located in San Marino with neighbours and friends that walk these grounds, and especially the Garden of Flowing Fragrance, daily. Representing the city of San Marino is Vice Mayor Dr. Stephen Huang. Please join me in welcoming him.
Good morning. Welcome to San Marino. And I want to thank the Huntington Library for having me here with my colleagues, Council Member Gretchen Robert Shepherd-Romy and Council Member Susan Jakubowski. And unfortunately, Mayor Tolt could not be here himself, but he wanted me to extend his congratulations to the library for this wonderful project. As we all know it, the Huntington Library is the jewel of our city, and it puts San Marino on the map. And I still remember vividly the first time I came here when I moved here 37 years ago, when my parents brought me here to see all the great collections that it has. And I've also traveled to China many times, and I've even been to Suzhou myself, and I've seen all the great gardens. But you know what, this one is just as good as you know, what they have over there, if not better. And well, and as you know it too, to have a big project like this, we all need collective efforts from the donors. And without their contributions, we would not be able to enjoy beautiful gardens like this. And in the future, you know, if you want to see great, beautiful gardens like this, you don't have to travel to China. You can just come to San Marino. And currently, we have many new constructions in San Marino, but this is one of them that I would definitely approve. Again, thank you for having us, and congratulations.
Thank you, Stephen. Our final speaker in the program needs no introduction. If you have been at all familiar with the process of building the Chinese garden and the programming that's taken place here in recent times, then you will be aware of the enormous contribution made by my friend and colleague, Dr. Jim Folsom. The Garden of Flowing Fragrance is Jim's vision, even his passion, and today we move one step closer to fully realizing Jim's dream. Please welcome then Jim Folsom, the Talene Jorgensen Director of the Botanical Gardens at the Huntington Library.
Here we go again. And I'm here singing to the choir. I say that because you have all been a part of this process. It would be foolish for me to begin to call names and point out places, because literally I could have almost everyone here stand up and I could say, wow, this is how this person has made this project move forward. Liu Fangyuan, the Huntington Chinese Garden, would never have come to life but for the work and generosity, the efforts, creativity, and support of thousands of people. You are core members of that club, which includes designers and artisans, engineers and builders, offices and officials in governments around the world, contractors and consultants, accountants and lawyers, and that's been very important, by the way, fundraisers and fund givers, historians and humanists, scholars and subjects, artists and performers, volunteers and visitors, staff, and of course, board leaders, all of whom have brought substance and character to the cultural concept we call a garden. I'm recounting this to say that it isn't simply about the gardens and our horticultural staff, as other areas in the grounds are. It's not just about Dave and the gardeners and the volunteers making things happen. Creating the life of Liu Fangyuan involves the input and attention of every part of the Huntington, from facilities and security. Larry, you have really been working your tail off. To finance and food service, to communications, IT, education, advancement, research, library, and art. Around that growing human core, we have built programs and outreach that impact yet more lives in ever-expanding ripples. As a center for East Asian Garden Study, founded by June and Simon, Philip and Michelle continue creating Liu Fangyuan and generating a world of intellectual connections and activities. Huntington Advancement and Education Divisions develop incredibly successful programming perhaps too successful if you look at our last year's Chinese New Year, that speak to a common heritage. The effort and community brought together by this project is diverse, extensive, and expanding. Artist in residence programs bring the vitality of performing arts to this new cultural stage and have moved relentlessly ahead. As many of you know, by the sold-out nature of Stan Lai's Nightwalk, which is gearing up as we speak, and I want to thank Judy Shi and Sion Adams, who have spearheaded moving that ahead along with our friends at Cal Arts, and Judy, of course, who had the vision to help us construct these very buildings in which we stand. Over the years, I've accumulated many particular memories related to this space, some of which have that New Yorker cartoon quality. In 2008, when we opened the South Pavilions, and when the space I'm standing on was like the space behind you that you'll see in a few minutes, just a bare platform. I spent time walking around the garden to make certain we knew what might need to happen. Opening had been rushed because we had, believe it or not, a very wet winter. Sorry, contractors, I'm hoping for another wet winter. And the contractors could only move out a few days before the garden opened. So plants were dropped in holes while still in their containers. The garden was far from even looking planted. The morning after the grand opening, which was attended by 1,300 people, I arrived here early just to take a lap and decompress. Delegates from the Chinese team of designers and builders had attended, and I ran into one of them at the Three Friends Pavilion right over there. Walking up, I asked him his thoughts. In a surprised voice, he answered, "This garden is full of Americans." Of course, almost everybody present was an American, but I knew that what he was expressing was surprise that people outside the Chinese American community would flood into the garden. We had, as a team, been so busy building the garden that only now had we come to the new reality, the life of the garden in the future. Well, walking through and eavesdropping on visitors, I overheard a couple talking, a husband and wife with a child in between them, hand in hand. One of the couples said to the other, "I don't know how much this cost, but it was worth every penny." which I loved. Peter Paniker's founding gift reflected a simple love of gardens and the aspiration to see a new garden created. But Liu Fengyuan exceeds those good yet simple goals. This is a garden for anyone and everyone, part of a contemporary vision of an America that is diverse, inclusive, welcoming, and creative. Liu Fengyuan reaches into the heritage of great gardens and aesthetic cultures, bringing the beauties and meaning of millennia of human creativity and engagement with nature to a modern world, a world that perhaps has almost forgotten what it means to live with nature. Our sister garden in Suzhou, the humble garden, the humble administrator's garden, is 500 years old and thriving. By that measure, we are just beginning. And as I always remind people, a garden is never finished. Unlike Wang Ximin, who in the 17th century invested his entire family fortune in gardens and art, going bankrupt in the process, Liu Fengyuan has been a bit more cautious. The treasures underpinning this garden are the gifts and human capital of you and so many other donors who have built, endowed, and underwritten every aspect of what has been accomplished and what we hope to achieve over coming centuries. The beginning we celebrate today initiates a next phase of physical accomplishment, which will yield a new and more flexible restaurant, 2 dedicated galleries for art, a series of walking galleries, a stargazing overlook, and if we raise a little bit more money, a punjing court and a celebration garden. Get my fingers out here. Which would complete the current master plan. But you know, gardens are never finished. New generations will have new thoughts about what makes this garden complete and how this garden works with and complements the life of our community. Compared to the nearly $60 million in treasure that has been received and dedicated to this garden over the last 20 years, the future seems expansive and wonderful. I think it's been an incredible investment, and I appreciate your being here. And I think you have an opportunity to explore some sites, take pictures, because in 2 years, they're going to look really different. Okay.